gunshots in the back. Someone had crudely chopped off the head, the arms, and sawed off the legs in the middle of the thigh, leaving the underwear on.
You did not hurt Mike. You killed Mike. You killed Mike last year and left me with a shell of a man trapped in his body. You have Mike's blood on your hands and they will follow you wherever you go.
Now y'all want to make this.
In September 2014, a shocking incident in Milwaukee, Wisconsin brought 20-year-old Antoine David Pettis into the spotlight for a crime that deeply disturbed the local community. According to investigators, Pettis broke into the home of a 101-year-old woman during the night, intending to commit a robbery. When he failed to find the valuables, he attacked and raped the elderly woman and fled the scene.
So this is an especially serious crime against a person who is a complete stranger.
One of the more horrific type of home invasions that we see.
DNA evidence collected from the crime scene later led police to Pettis. After his arrest, Pettis admitted to the crime, saying he had only planned to steal. The victim, who had lived independently in her home for 60 years, was so traumatized by the incident that she was forced to leave her home and move into an assisted living facility for her safety.
That she could not go to sleep, that she was afraid at all times as a result of the actions of the defendant.
During his court appearances, Pettis showed little remorse initially, even smiling for cameras and making remarks to reporters.
Now y'all want to make this.
However, in January 2015, he pleaded guilty to charges of burglary, aggravated battery, and second-degree sexual assault.
I want to say that I apologize for making this big mistake.
A week later, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison, followed by 15 years of extended supervision upon release. Pettis was also ordered to register as a sex offender and pay restitution, which included covering the costs of the victim's relocation. In February 2013, a tragic incident unfolded in Des Moines, Iowa, when Mike Wasike became the victim of a carjacking that changed his life forever. That night, Wasike was driving when he was approached by a group of boys, LaShawn Murray, Kenneth Berry, and Terrance Cheeks Jr. According to investigators, the boys forced Wasike out of his vehicle during a robbery attempt. The situation turned serious, leaving Wasike with life-altering injuries that impacted his ability to speak, move, and care for himself. Following the incident, police arrested the suspects and charged them in connection with the case. In 2014, LaShawn Murray was found guilty of first-degree robbery. During sentencing, the court heard emotional statements from Wasike's family, describing how their lives had been devastated.
You did not hurt Mike. You killed Mike. You killed Mike last year and left me with a shell of a man trapped in his body, unable to talk to me, unable to identify me or do anything for me. You have Mike's blood on your hands and they will follow you wherever you go.
Murray apologized in court, expressing regret for his actions. The judge sentenced Murray to 2 consecutive 25-year prison terms, with a minimum of 17.5 years to be served before becoming eligible for parole. His co-defendant, Berry, agreed to a 20-year sentence with a 7-year mandatory minimum, while Heeks was sentenced to 50 years, with parole eligibility after approximately 35 years. In a deeply disturbing case from Fulton County, Georgia, a mother pleaded guilty to charges including first-degree cruelty to children, trafficking a person for sexual servitude, and enticing a child for indecent purposes. The court heard that Morgan Summerlin had allowed 2 men to abuse her daughters in exchange for money and drugs. The victims reported that their mother took them to the men's homes where the assaults occurred, and that she took the money the men gave them afterward. Summerlin was sentenced to 30 years in prison, with 20 years to be served in custody and the remaining 10 on probation. The 2 men involved received severe sentences. One was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 146 years, and the other received 25 years in prison, followed by life on probation. Additionally, the children's grandmother pleaded guilty to second-degree cruelty to children for failing to protect them and was sentenced to 5 years, with 1 year commuted to time served and the remainder on probation. In Johnson County, a case that deeply disturbed the community came to an end when Jesse Akens pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including rape, attempted rape, kidnapping, and assault. The crimes involved two separate incidents. In December 2013, Akens broke into a woman's apartment where he assaulted and raped her. Several months later, in July 2014, he attacked another woman, attempting to assault her as well, but she managed to resist. Prosecutors described both attacks as extremely violent, calling them among the most brutal cases the county had ever seen.
I told everyone, and look how many people know and hate you. And thanks to those cameras, thousands of more people will know and they will hate you.
After nearly a year and a half of waiting for justice, both victims bravely appeared in court during the sentencing hearing. They shared emotional testimonies, recalling their terrifying experiences and the lasting trauma caused by Akens.
That night, I felt myself fading, and every cell in my body fought to live. That fight was bigger than the pain, bigger than the fear. It's just a pure will to survive.
To remember those words of you threatening to come back and finish what you started if we were to ever turn you in. And for us to be here and for you to be there is one of the greatest feelings I will ever know.
The judge praised their courage, recognizing the strength it took to confront their attacker face to face. Akens, who admitted guilt but did not speak in court, was sentenced to 27.5 years in prison. His lawyer claimed that drug use contributed to his actions, but the court focused on the severity of his crimes and the lasting impact on the victims. In 2017, a serious criminal case surfaced from West Price Hill, Cincinnati, involving India Kirksey. The case began when authorities in Texas discovered a video circulating online, reportedly showing Kirksey involved in an inappropriate act with a boy. The video was forwarded to Hamilton County Jobs and Family Services, which led to an immediate police investigation.
It's just not of her character. There's not nothing that she would do.
Following the incident, Kirksey's family spoke publicly, acknowledging the seriousness of the case, but also sharing that she has special needs.
I know she's being portrayed as a monster. Anytime there's someone saying that someone is being some type of attack on anyone, I automatically would think someone is a monster too, but literally anyone around you would know this is really not her.
The family member described her actions as completely out of character and expressed that they had always tried their best to guide and support her.
We as family try the best we can at therapy and talk to her about stuff and her safety, and sometimes you can only do so much.
After her arrest, Kirksey admitted to the crime during questioning. She was charged with first-degree rape. In court, her bond was set at $350,000, and she was ordered to have no contact with the boy involved. In January 2015, 5 men from Chicopee, Massachusetts, Giovanni Gutierrez, Tyler Gibson, Joseph Lopez, Fernando Ramos, and Raul Ramos were arraigned in Springfield District Court on charges of kidnapping and aggravated rape of a 20-year-old woman at a West Springfield hotel. According to Assistant District Attorney Victoria Wright, the incident occurred on January 15th when a small gathering in a hotel room allegedly escalated into a traumatic event for the victim. The defendants reportedly assaulted the woman multiple times and recorded the acts using a cell phone.
Snuck to the bathroom, got herself dressed, and left. She called her friend when she left. She broke down in tears, hysterically crying, and then she went to Holyoke Hospital for a rape kit.
The victim managed to escape when the men fell asleep, contacted a friend, and subsequently underwent a forensic examination at Holyoke Hospital. During the arraignment, defense attorneys noted that some defendants and the victim were acquaintances from high school in Chicopee. All 5 men pleaded not guilty to the charges. In December 2019, 19-year-old twin sisters, Kira and Tyra Faison, were involved in a brutal attack in Clayton County, Georgia. The twins broke into the home of a woman named Laya Elso, reportedly over a personal dispute involving a man. They kicked down her door, physically assaulted her, and stole her car keys and phone. The victim suffered serious injuries, including brain swelling, and was hospitalized in intensive care. The violent nature of the attack led police to issue arrest warrants and place the twins on on Clayton County's most wanted list. Tyra Faison was arrested first on December 16, 2019, while Kira was caught 2 days later hiding in a motel. Kira's boyfriend, Paul Moten, was also arrested for helping her avoid capture.
Ms. Faison, you're charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
Both sisters faced multiple charges, including aggravated assault, robbery, burglary, and criminal trespass. Kira was additionally charged for failing to appear in court on previous charges. Due to the severity of the crime, a judge denied Kira's bond, and both sisters awaited further court proceedings. Demetrius Big Meech Flannery, along with his brother Terry Flannery, rose to power in the late 1980s, building one of America's largest drug trafficking organizations, the Black Mafia Family, also known as BMF. Their operation quickly expanded from Detroit to Atlanta and across several other states, generating hundreds of millions of dollars. Beyond the drug trade, BMF also entered the entertainment world, running a successful record label and magazine, which added to their growing influence. However, in 2006, their empire came crashing down when both brothers were indicted in a federal RICO case out of Georgia. They were accused of running a massive criminal organization while using their music business as a front.
BMF was the first group that was accused of being both a criminal organization and a record label.
In 2008, Big Meech and Terry were both sentenced to 30 years in prison for drug trafficking, money laundering, and leading a criminal enterprise.
And he went down. And when he went down, he and his brother were sentenced to 30 years in prison.
Terry Flannery was released in 2020, and now, after serving nearly 20 years, Big Meech has also been released from federal prison. Instead of full freedom, he will complete the remainder of his sentence at a residential reentry program commonly known as a halfway house in Miami. In March 2016, a rare courtroom conflict took place at the Orange County Juvenile Courthouse in Florida between Circuit Court Judge Jennifer Harris and Sergeant Cammie Stowe of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. The disagreement began when Judge Harris ordered multiple juvenile defendants to be brought into the courtroom at once to speed up proceedings. However, Sergeant Stowe refused, explaining that department policy required juveniles to be escorted one at a time for safety reasons. The situation escalated when Stowe stood firm on her decision, despite the judge's direct order. Judge Harris found this to be a deliberate violation, holding Sergeant Stowe in contempt of court and ordering her to either complete 50 hours of community service or pay a $500 fine. Sergeant Stowe appealed the ruling, and later that year, in December 2016, the Florida 5th District Court of Appeal overturned the contempt charge. The appellate court ruled that the proper legal steps for a contempt proceeding had not been followed and ordered the lower court to dismiss the case. This incident not only highlighted a rare public disagreement between courtroom authority and law enforcement policy, but also raised questions about the boundaries of courtroom control versus law enforcement safety protocols. In early 2023, Hamilton County, Ohio, became the center of a serious investigation involving Rodolfo Castillo. According to authorities, Castillo targeted women using deception and intimidation.
We do have 3 victims. They were all strangers to the defendant.
On February 13th, he booked a rideshare, requesting a female driver, and after getting inside the car, forced her to withdraw money and drove her to a remote location before letting her go. The next day, on February 14th, he approached another woman outside a grocery store, offered her a ride, and later made threats during the drive. She managed to escape safely at a traffic light. A few days later, on February 16th, Castillo arranged another rideshare, used a similar method to control the driver, and eventually released her near the original pickup spot.
He tied both victims up by their hands and their feet. The defendant trapped both victims in the back seat of their cars by reclining the back seat down. They could not get away.
Police arrested Castillo on February 24th, 2023, after an investigation linked him to all 3 incidents. He was charged with 15 criminal counts, including kidnapping and robbery. If convicted, he faces up to 85 years in prison.
One was a minor.
And the plea?
Not guilty.
Castillo pleaded not guilty in court, and his bond was set at $775,000. Investigators believe there may be more victims and continue to urge anyone with information to contact law enforcement. If convicted on all charges, Castillo faces a maximum possible sentence of 85 years in prison. In April 2018, a troubling case unfolded in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, involving Terrance Thorp Jr. The incident happened when a father briefly left his car running outside a friend's house to grab juice for his daughter, who was asleep in the back seat. During that short moment, Thorp stole the car, unaware that a girl was still inside.
And it's something that is very disconcerting, and he is very upset over it.
Soon after, realizing the girl was in the vehicle, Thorp abandoned the car in a nearby church parking lot. Thankfully, the girl was found safe and still asleep.
All I wanted was my daughter back. That's it. That's all I can think about was getting her back.
Surveillance cameras captured Thorp running from the scene. After the footage was shared on local news, Thorp's mother recognized him and contacted the police, leading to his arrest.
He's on probation in 5 cases.
Thorp was charged with grand theft auto and desertion of a girl. In court, it was revealed this wasn't his first run-in with the law. The judge ordered Thorp to stay in juvenile detention for 21 days while the case moved forward. He was expected to return to court for further hearings in Brandon, Florida. A family hired Marissa Mowry as a live-in nanny to care for their son. However, what started as a trusted role turned into a serious criminal case. During her time working for the family, Mowry engaged in an inappropriate relationship with the boy, which later resulted in the birth of a boy. Years later, the truth came to light when the boy shared what had happened with his mother. A DNA test confirmed the boy was the father of Mowry's son.
We don't think about females as being predators usually. And I didn't. And it cost me. Know the people your children are around. Investigate everything. You are your child's biggest advocate.
Following an investigation, Mowry was arrested and charged with multiple counts of sexual battery. In 2019, she pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. After completing her prison sentence, Mowry must also serve 10 years on sex offender probation and has been officially registered as a predator. The victim is raising his son with the support of his family while continuing his education. In October 2019, a disturbing case unfolded in Clear Creek Township, Ohio. According to investigators, Lindsay Parker contacted her ex-boyfriend, claiming she needed help. Trusting her, the man went to her home on East Little 5 Points Road. However, what awaited him was far from what he expected. Once inside, Lindsay, along with her father, Brian Parker, and another man, Christopher Edwards, held the victim against his will. For 4 days, he was confined inside a dog cage and assaulted. After enduring the ordeal, the victim managed to escape when his captors were away. He broke into the Clear Creek Township Fire Department across the street, stole an ambulance, and drove himself to Dayton Children's Hospital for emergency care. In February 2020, Lindsay and Brian Parker pleaded guilty to felonious assault. In exchange, kidnapping charges were dropped. During sentencing, a letter from the victim revealed the lasting impact of the trauma, including hospital stays, counseling, and ongoing struggles with fear and anxiety.
After 2 months of attending counseling sessions twice a week, I thought that I would be feeling somewhat normal, but I still can't sleep through the night, nor can I leave the house without a feeling of dread overcoming me.
Both Lindsay and Brian were sentenced to 6 to 9 years in prison. Christopher Edwards later accepted a plea deal in May 2020, receiving a 6-year sentence with credit for time served. He will be under supervision by the Adult Parole Authority for 3 years upon release. In October 2024, a jewelry store robbery worth nearly $1.7 million shocked Nashville, Tennessee. According to police, Melanie Garcia and Orlando Hernandez, along with a third suspect, entered Dubai Jewelry pretending to be customers. Hernandez then sprayed an employee with pepper spray, pulled out a gun, and forced workers into a back room, while Garcia and the other suspect collected jewelry and gold. The suspects managed to flee the scene before police arrived.
We send undercover resources to the pool area to see if we can locate the offenders.
we were able to identify our subjects.
Detectives later traced Garcia and Hernandez to Miami Beach, Florida, using surveillance footage and investigative tools. They were found staying at the Grand Beach Hotel, where Miami Beach police, with the help of SWAT teams and undercover officers, arrested them.
Our detectives were able to recover money and also a wig that we believe is directly connected in the commission of the crime.
Authorities recovered cash, stolen jewelry, and a wig believed to have been used in the crime.
You were arrested on a warrant from the state of Tennessee.
Both suspects now face multiple charges, including armed robbery, aggravated assault, and kidnapping. They are being held without bond in Florida while awaiting extradition to Tennessee. Meanwhile, the third suspect remains unidentified and is still being sought by police. In July 2014, a public incident at Bradenton Beach in Manatee County, Florida, brought national attention when Jose Caballero and Elisa Alvarez were caught engaging in inappropriate behavior on the beach during broad daylight. The act was witnessed by several beachgoers, including a girl, and a video recording taken by a bystander later became key evidence in court. Police arrested both Caballero and Alvarez, charging them with lewd and lascivious exhibition, a serious criminal offense in Florida. In May 2015, a jury found both of them guilty. During sentencing, Elisa Alvarez received credit for time already served, which was about 30 days in jail, and she was released soon after. However, she was also required to register as a sex offender.
I mean, it's an embarrassment for her, and to take somebody who's hardworking, who's a school person, and all of a sudden put them in jail for 30 days, whatever it's been. I mean, it's shocking. It's eye-opening. To say that she's learned her lesson would be an understatement.
Jose Caballero faced a harsher sentence because of his previous felony conviction for drug trafficking. He was sentenced to 30 months, 2.5 years, in prison and, like Alvarez, was ordered to register as a sex offender. Both defendants later appealed their convictions, but their case remained a strong example of how public behavior can lead to severe legal consequences. In Manatee County, Florida, Leslie McHugh, a registered nurse at Lakewood Ranch Medical Center, was arrested after being accused of stealing credit card information from patients while they were receiving treatment. According to investigators, McHugh used moments when patients were away from their belongings, such as during X-ray procedures, to collect their credit card details. She then made online purchases using the stolen information, having the items delivered directly to her apartment.
Hey, that's the last thing you expect is for a nurse to do that to you.
During a search of her home, detectives recovered several packages from fraudulent purchases and found a handwritten ledger containing the personal and financial information of about 20 patients.
And I'm glad that they caught her, because who knows how many other people that she has done this to.
It was also revealed that McHugh had a prior arrest for theft in Lee County. She now faces charges including criminal use of personal information and fraudulent use of credit cards. The investigation is still ongoing, and officials believe more charges could be added. The hospital confirmed that McHugh is no longer employed there. In February 2020, an incident in East Boston sparked outrage and raised serious concerns about racism and civil rights. According to reports, Sarah Vasquez and her daughter were walking through Maverick Square, speaking Spanish, when they were approached by two women, Stephanie Armstrong and Jenny Lee Enamorati.
And what else did she say to you?
Both women began shouting offensive remarks, telling Vasquez and her daughter to go back to your country and demanding they speak English. What started as verbal harassment quickly escalated. Surveillance footage later shown in court captured Armstrong and Enamorati physically attacking the mother and daughter, pulling their hair and hitting them.
Both of the victims were hit. Both of them, their hair was pulled, and that was done by the defendant within this case.
Vasquez later testified that she suffered injuries to her neck, face, and hand. She also shared how the incident left her fearful of speaking Spanish in public, worried it could lead to another confrontation.
Clients were told to go back to their country and to speak English, then that's what we feel.
Following the attack, Stephanie Armstrong was charged with 2 counts of assault and 2 civil rights violations. However, during her trial in June 2022, she was found guilty of assault but acquitted of the civil rights charges. The judge sentenced Armstrong to 2 years of probation. Earlier that year, Jenny Lee Enamorati had accepted a plea deal and was sentenced to 15 months of probation. Both sentences sparked criticism from civil rights activists, who believe the punishments failed to fully reflect the seriousness of the attack. In January 2025, a single-car rollover accident in Northfield Township, Michigan, brought Cynthia Pier to the attention of law enforcement. When officers arrived on the scene, they found her disoriented and under the influence. A blood test conducted at the hospital confirmed a startling blood alcohol content of 0.253%, over 3 times the legal limit. During the encounter, as officers attempted to assist her into medical care, she resisted and even tried to kick them. Following the incident, Cynthia appeared in court before Judge Cedric Simpson.
State your name.
Cynthia Pier.
All right, ma'am, it is this court's understanding that you are going to be pleading guilty to 2 charges. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
The first charge is that of operating while intoxicated. That's a misdemeanor punishable by up to 93 days in jail, $500 fine plus court costs. The court could order community service and any rehabilitative programs the court deems necessary. Court could order your vehicle immobilized, could order you to pay the cost of the prosecution as well as the cost of any emergency governmental services. You understand all of that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Count 4 is the charge of attempted resisting and obstructing an officer. That's a misdemeanor punishable by up to 1 year, $1,000 fine plus court costs. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. You understand also, ma'am, that while I'm taking your plea, I would not be your sentencing judge, and you would be sentenced before Judge Freshour in the 1483 District Court. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, understanding all of that, you still wish to plead guilty?
Yes, sir.
To the charge of operating while intoxicated, how do you plead?
Guilty.
To the charge of attempted resisting and obstructing, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Now, you understand that by pleading guilty, you'll not have a trial of any kind?
Correct.
You signed an advice of rights form, is that correct?
Yes.
Any question regarding any of those rights?
No, sir.
Please look at paragraph 5. You'll see a copy on the podium. Those are your rights which are part of a trial. You understand by pleading guilty, you'll be giving up those rights as well as all the rights on that form.
Yes, sir.
You understand you're giving up your right to appeal of right?
Yes.
Are you on probation or parole?
No, sir.
Has anybody promised you anything other than what's been stated here today on the record to get you to plea?
No, sir.
Anybody threaten you or coerce?
No, sir.
You're doing this voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
Of your own free will?
Yes, sir.
And because you believe that you are indeed guilty of these offenses?
Yes, sir.
January 18, 2025, at the location of 9876 Main Street, Whitmore Lake, Northfield Township, Washington County, State of Michigan. Were you operating a motor vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Prior to operating that motor vehicle, did you consume intoxicating liquor?
Yes, sir.
What'd you have and how much?
Captain and Coke at Captain Joe's. I don't remember. Maybe.
All right. Were you stopped by the police or was there an accident?
There's a single car rollover accident, Your Honor.
Okay. Did the police arrive?
Yes.
Were you taken to the hospital?
Yes.
Was there a blood draw?
Yes.
And what were the results of the blood draw?
It was 0.253, Your Honor.
Ma'am, do you have any reason to dispute those blood test results?
No, sir.
All right. When the police did arrive and you were interacting with the police, what happened?
Did you attempt to kick one of the police officers?
Yes.
And at the time that you were attempting to kick the police officers, what were they trying to do?
Take me into the hospital.
They were trying to get you into the hospital, get help for you, and you tried to kick them. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
There, she pled guilty to 2 charges: operating while intoxicated and attempted resisting and obstructing a police officer.
Counsel, have I complied with the court rule? Would it be proper to accept this defendant's plea?
Defense is satisfied, Your Honor. Thank you.
Court will accept the defendant's pleas of guilty to counts 3 and 4. Counts 1 and 2 are dismissed pursuant to the plea agreement. Pre-sentence investigation and report is ordered at 1483 probation. Sentencing in this matter will be
16th at 9 a.m.
June 16, 2025, 9.
In exchange for her plea, 2 other charges were dropped as part of an agreement with the prosecution. Judge Simpson informed her that she would be sentenced later by another judge. As part of her bond conditions, Cynthia was ordered not to consume alcohol and was placed on a Soberlink monitoring system, a remote device that tracks alcohol consumption through scheduled breath tests. However, just a day after receiving the device, she missed a scheduled test and then returned a positive alcohol result the following morning.
And will continue.
Regarding bond.
Yes.
There is a key corrections report, maybe slightly turning. How I read it, there was a missed test in the evening, and then the following morning, a late test with a very low alcohol, 0.006, I believe.
What happened? I don't know why they didn't say this is a violation of a progress report.
I had just received the,
Mr. Allen. On April 11th, you tested positive for alcohol.
Your Honor, this was the first time she's ever been on any type of Soberlink monitor. It's the first time she's ever had a criminal offense. And this was the very first day. You can see she missed the test on the night of the 10th, which is the same day she picked up the Soberlink, and then she missed the next morning, or tested positive the next morning in the 5 to 8 window of the next morning. I believe it was just a process of her getting used to being tested.
I don't know what that means.
It means that alcohol is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. If she was drinking prior to that date, she had quit, and she may have still had some residue left over. She has had no positive tests since the first day of testing. And if she hasn't figured out a way to stop drinking successfully, she is going to be found out when she's either continuing on bond or when she's on probation. And we would have no objection to her continuing on the Soberlink as long as Judge Fresh Hours thinks necessary.
Well, except for the fact that I have her arraignment occurring in January 2025. Unless that date is wrong.
There was she was doing testing, random testing every week for 3 or 4 months, but there was no alcohol testing, regular alcohol testing. There was no Soberlink, there was no scram tether, there was nothing for 3 months.
Yeah, but she was under an order not to consume alcohol.
I understand, Your Honor, and I'm not saying that she did. I'm saying that it looks like this was her first time ever on a Soberlink. And maybe it takes her a while, or took her one day to realize what the expectations were, and she cannot have any alcohol of any kind to consume anything that would possibly cause a positive reading.
She knows she's not supposed to have alcohol.
I did not. I had a root canal. I was in the process of that. Only thing I had was penicillin. Honest to God.
Is that what you really want to tell me?
I'm telling you that.
If you're now, ma'am, is what you want to tell me is that on April 11th, you tested positive on a Soberlink because of a root canal?
I had no alcohol.
I've been doing this a minute.
That's
what you want to tell me, ma'am, I'm just asking you a straightforward question. Is that what you want to tell me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to let Judge Freshour handle her bond. But at this point, her bond is revoked. Defendants remain.
Her defense argued that this was her first time using such a device, and that the positive test may have been caused by residual alcohol in her system. They also mentioned a recent dental procedure, implying medication like penicillin could have interfered. Judge Simpson, unconvinced, questioned her directly. When she suggested the positive test might be linked to a root canal, he challenged the credibility of her claim. His patience worn thin, the judge ultimately revoked her bond, stating clearly that excuses would not be tolerated in cases involving court-ordered sobriety. Cynthia Pier was taken into custody on the spot. Her next hearing is scheduled for June 2025. Juan David Ortiz, a U.S. Border Patrol agent and Navy veteran, lived in Laredo, Texas, and held supervisory and intelligence positions within his agency. By all appearances, he led a respectable life. But in September 2018, that facade crumbled when Ortiz was arrested and later convicted of killing 4 women involved in sex sex work, shocking the community and law enforcement alike. The series of crimes began on September 3rd, 2018, when Ortiz picked up 29-year-old Melissa Ramirez and drove her to a remote location outside Laredo. He shot her, and her body was discovered the next day. Just 10 days later, on September 13, Ortiz encountered 42-year-old Claudine Ann Luera. After an exchange in which she questioned him about Melissa's disappearance, he shot her. Though Luera was found alive, she succumbed to her injuries at the hospital. The very next day, September 14th, Ortiz picked up 26-year-old Erica Peña. As they talked, he grew nervous, expressing fear about being linked to previous crimes through DNA evidence. Then, in a chilling moment, he pulled a weapon and pointed it directly at her. Peña managed to escape and flagged down a state trooper, providing law enforcement with critical details that identified Ortiz as the suspect. That same evening, Ortiz went on to kill 2 more women, Janelle Ortiz, 28, and Giselda Alicia Cantu, 35, again targeting them in secluded areas and them. On September 15th, authorities located Ortiz hiding in a hotel parking garage in Laredo and took him into custody. During interrogation, he confessed to the murders, admitting he viewed the victims as disposable and felt compelled to eliminate them. Ortiz's trial began in November 2022 in San Antonio, Texas.
Throughout this trial, we are going to bring you evidence. We are going to, yes, we're in Bexar County, but through the evidence, through technology, through photos, through videos, and through testimony, we will take you to that dark and horrible places that this happened. You will hear the evidence in his own words. I wanted to clean up the streets. And in Spanish he says, these people are these are dirt.
Now, one of the things we would ask you to focus on is the investigation that the Webb County Sheriff's Office conducted together with the Texas Rangers. Together with the report writing, the lack of reports, the lack of protocol, and how they, just jump to certain conclusions.
The prosecution presented damning evidence, including his confession, surveillance footage, and witness testimony from Erica Peña, who had narrowly escaped becoming another victim.
And how were you able to support this addiction?
Many ways. Working in the streets.
Can you tell us what you see in front of you on State's Exhibit 1?
I see a white Dodge.
Okay. And who does that white Dodge belong to?
David.
Had you been in that white Dodge before?
Yeah.
How many times?
I don't recall how many times exactly, but plenty of times.
But he would take you to the drug house?
Yeah.
And who would pay for the drugs?
David would give me money. Okay. As soon as we entered the house, David wasn't himself anymore. I saw him just not himself, very nervous.
How did he begin to become nervous? What were you all, if anything, talking about?
We're talking about some other stuff, then all of a sudden he said that he was afraid that they would check his DNA because he was second to last to be with Melissa.
Before that, inside the truck, tell us about what you remember when he pulled the gun.
He's trying to grab me by my left shoulder.
Where did he get the gun from? Had you seen the gun?
I had not seen it, no.
What, if anything, did he do with the gun?
He just pointed it right at me.
When he pointed it at you, show the ladies and gentlemen jury where he pointed to you.
Right here at my face.
Can you read that for me, just this part right here?
Where did he point it to? Right here, right to your chest. It's just same thing.
Ma'am, I'm just asking you. Can you read it and see what you said?
To your chest, yes. You're pointing to your chest, yes.
Okay, that's all I needed to.
Okay.
State Trooper Francisco Javier recounted his encounter with Pena, describing her in a state of panic.
It's Francisco Javier Hernandez, sir.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Texas Department of Public Safety as a state trooper. I heard her yelling for help. I immediately noticed that she was in shock. Her breathing was kind of rapid, like hyperventilating. I also noticed that she was scared at that time. And she explained to me that she had just gotten away from a gentleman that pointed a gun at her.
Do you know who he is?
His name is David.
You only know him as David, or?
Yeah.
Just relax.
Well, we went in his house. It was su casa.
Yeah.
I started getting very sick. I started shaking.
We were able to enter the white building first to make sure he wasn't there. And then after that, we ended up clearing the second building in there, which was the hotel. And when we cleared that hotel, on the fourth floor was Mr. Ortiz. He was found there.
Did you hear anyone give Mr. Ortiz his Miranda warnings?
I can't recall about at that time, sir.
But definitely you did not see anyone pat him down at the time.
I know that there was patting him down. I just don't recall who was it.
Prosecutors argued Ortiz acted methodically with a clear intent to kill, motivated by his own twisted sense of justice. The defense argued that Ortiz suffered from PTSD and claimed his confession was coerced. However, the jury was unconvinced.
Verdict form. We, the jury, find the defendant, Juan David Ortiz, guilty of the offense of capital murder as charged in the indictment and as instructed in this charge. Signed by the presiding jury. This is your verdict, correct? Thank you. Mr. Ortiz, you heard the jury's verdict. You have the right to allocution, which means you have the right to make a statement if you wish.
We have the jury polled.
Okay, so they're asking for the jury to be polled, so meet the jury list. Well, I'm just going to call you by number from the back. Juror number 1, can you please stand and tell me, was this your verdict? In the front.
Guilty.
Juror number 2.
Guilty.
Juror number 3.
Guilty.
Juror number 4.
Guilty.
Juror number 5.
Guilty.
Juror number 6.
Guilty.
Juror number 7.
Guilty.
Juror number 8.
Guilty.
Juror number 9. Juror number 10.
Guilty.
Juror number 11.
Guilty.
And juror number 12.
Guilty.
Thank you. You may be seated. So, Mr. Ortiz, at this, as you know, I'm sure your attorneys have informed you, and you've heard throughout the trial, this charge of capital murder has an automatic sentence of life in prison without the possibility for parole. So, at this time, the court is going to assess the punishment of life in prison without the possibility of parole. That is your sentence at this time.
On December 7, 2022, after deliberating for over 5 hours, the jury found Ortiz guilty of capital murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The decision not to seek the death penalty was influenced by the victims' families, who felt that life imprisonment was a more severe punishment. Chandler Halderson was a 23-year-old from Windsor, Wisconsin, who presented himself to family and friends as a successful college student and an ambitious young man with a bright future. He claimed he was enrolled at Madison Area Technical College and had secured jobs, including a fictional offer from SpaceX. In reality, Chandler had dropped out and was unemployed, but he maintained the illusion with fake emails and fabricated stories. On July 1st, 2021, Chandler told police that his parents, Bart and Krista Halderson, had left with another couple for their family cabin in Langlade County for the 4th of July weekend. When Krista failed to show up for work on July 2nd and no one heard from the couple for days, Chandler reported them missing on July 7th. The very next day, human remains were discovered near a property connected to Chandler's girlfriend. They were soon identified as belonging to his father, Bart. Investigators quickly focused on Chandler, who was arrested for providing false information to law enforcement. Days later, on July 14th, more More remains, this time of Krista, were located near the Wisconsin River. The investigation uncovered significant evidence. Chandler had purchased cleaning supplies, hidden his parents' IDs and phones in the house, and used a weapon that was later linked to the crime. Tools with biological evidence were also recovered. Surveillance footage and digital data helped piece together a disturbing timeline. In August 2021, Chandler was formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating and hiding corpses, and lying to authorities. He pleaded not guilty. His trial began in January 2022.
So what the police did was started to look into Chandler Halderson. This is all occurring in the same 24-hour, 48-hour period. And what they learn about him isn't suspicious at all. He's a Madison College student, MATC. They go by Madison College now, if you didn't get the email. Madison College student. He's about to graduate. He's studying renewable resource engineering, kind of a hybrid IT degree with solar panels, things of that sort. He's about to get a certificate. But things had looked bright for him. He'd recently been working at American Family Insurance. He's working from home like most of us the last couple of years. But he's working a good job at American Family Insurance. And not only was he working a good job, Chandler had just gotten a better job. He got hired at SpaceX. He was about to embark on a career that people in the IT field could only dream of. He's planning to move to Titusville, Florida. That's where SpaceX operation is, down in Florida, with his girlfriend. They'd rented an apartment. They'd bought a car. And not only was this not someone who was antisocial, he was pro-social. He was working with the Madison Police and the Department of Natural Resources on their rescue diving team. He was a scuba diver, working with the police. The only thing that was a bit odd is he'd recently suffered a head injury. Fallen down the stairs, had terrible concussion, was unable to move for the most part, had to wear a neck brace. He was permanently, perhaps injured. All of those things threw police off from thinking it was Chandler. He had anything to do with this. And at that point, for all they knew, as sad as it is, Bart and Krista and an unknown couple were crashed into a ditch somewhere between here and White Lake, Wisconsin, dead from a car crash. So they started looking. Deputies are sent up north. The Langlade County Sheriff's Department is searching a cabin. No one had ever been there. It didn't look like anyone had been there at all in years. It was run down. The grass hadn't been mowed. There was no food in the refrigerator. No one had been there. So the police expand their search, and they start talking to not only just Chandler, people about Chandler. They start talking to people who were with Chandler that weekend. Specifically, they talked to his girlfriend, a young girl named Catherine. She goes by Kat. And Kat says, I was with him like all weekend. We had a normal 4th of July weekend. We went out to my family's farm. We got a farm. There was a pool. We ate dinner. Chandler was having the concussion issue and he couldn't really move his legs. And so he asked to use their pool the next day because he thought that was good therapy. So the police, what do they do next? They go talk to the person who owns the farm. And they say, was Chandler out here? And she goes, yeah, he was out here on the 4th of July. But you know what? He showed up the next day by himself. He showed up the next day by himself. I told him he could come back anytime, as we just say to people, not expecting they're gonna roll into your house the next day. She says he was acting bizarre. Said that he had a doctor's appointment and they'd given him some bad news that he was gonna lose his job at SpaceX because he couldn't travel, he couldn't attend to orientation to start. And she goes, he asked to use the pool. And of course I said yes. This woman will testify and she'll tell you that she sat in her house for a while, perhaps a bit weirded out that someone had just shown up at her rural farm, but she let him have his space. But about an hour later, she goes down to the pool to check on him. He's not there. No one had opened the pool. No one had been in the pool. But she sees his car. It's parked out in the field, away from the pool, backed in toward where that grass is a bit longer, and had its hatch up. She thought, boy, that was strange. But she thought maybe he's just on a walk. So she goes in the pool. She said, I'm just gonna go in the pool. If you remember that weekend, it's extraordinarily hot. She starts swimming. She says, then I see Chandler. He's walking out of the woods in that area. Now, at this point in the investigation, the police are out there with this woman. They're out on the farm, and she says he walked out over there. And I promise the photos are only gonna go this far for right now, but the police walked about 20 yards into the woods, and in that pile of debris, under dozens of sticks, bushes, and dirt, they found Bart Halderson. Now, when I say they found Bart Halderson, I need to explain that. They found a human torso. Someone had crudely chopped off the head, the arms, and sawed off the legs in the middle of the thigh, leaving the underwear on and the beginnings of the pants. They removed the sticks and brush over a course of a few hours. They brought out doctors from the medical examiner's office to make sure everything was done appropriately. They rolled the torso over. There were shots in the back. This man had been shot in the back and chopped up. At this point, the farm, a beautiful farm, cultivated for years with wildflowers, kind of an Eden of sorts, was turned into a crime scene.
The prosecution argued Chandler killed his parents to prevent them from discovering his lies about school and work.
Now, I'm not going to have a fancy PowerPoint here, and I'm probably not even going to talk very much longer. But as I comment to you on the evidence that you're going to see in this case, I want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, and the judge already indicated this in some of the preliminary instructions, lack of evidence is evidence just as much as any evidence that is presented to you in the courtroom. Look for what's missing. Look for alternate explanations. Because the second thing I want to tell you is that evidence of one thing is not necessarily evidence of another thing. One fact here could mean a different fact here, but it also could mean 3 or 4 other facts. So you have to avoid jumping to conclusions and really dig deep and look at what this all means. You're going to notice that many of the facts, many of the witnesses, aren't going to be hotly contested by the defense in this case. And that goes back to what I was just saying. 12, 18, 100 reasonable people can look at a certain situation and form a different conclusion. And when you're talking about a system where you need to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt, you better make very sure that you're excluding all of the other things that these facts could mean. Because you just aren't going to know what happened. You're going to know some about the before. You're going to know some about the after. But you're not going to know what happened in the Haldersons' home, who did it, what happened, how it went down, whether it was intentional or not, which is an element of homicide. You're just not going to know. You're also going to not know how Bart and Krista would have reacted to these lies. That's never going to be explained to you why lying turns into murder or how lying turns into murder. Be sure to look for what you're not told, because that's evidence just as much as any evidence is. I'm going to ask you to resist some things in this case as jurors. We already talked a little bit about proof beyond a reasonable doubt. What that means is you must resist guessing. You must resist speculation. You must resist storytelling. And only convict when it's proven, or if it's proven, which it won't be, beyond a reasonable doubt.
The defense did not deny that Chandler was dishonest, but contended that the prosecution's case lacked direct evidence of murder and urged jurors not to jump to conclusions. Despite these arguments, the jury was unconvinced. On January 20th, 2022, Chandler was found guilty on all counts.
I have to, for this sentence, ensure that the only time Mr. Halderson comes back into the community is to have the privilege of a burial that he denied his parents. And so on counts 1 and 5, per statute, I sentence him to life in prison, and pursuant to section 973.014, sub 1G3, I find that he is not to be eligible for extended supervision during that course. The sentences on the other counts, given 2 life sentences, become rather superfluous, to say the least, but at the same time, I absolutely acknowledge that we may be in a completely different position here had he committed the acts of homicide, but then stopped and took other steps to accept responsibility and sought forgiveness of everyone. Because what happens with a weapon in a moment of panic is different than what happened over those 48 to 72 hours. The events of which I don't wish to think of or consider once again, having listened to the evidence and observed the testimony and the physical evidence. So to make this quite simple, I will impose maximum terms concurrent to each other and concurrent to counts 1 and 5 on each of the other counts within the information of which the verdict convicted Mr. Halderson. I do believe that by imposing the maximum, I'm recognizing the severity of those individual acts.
On March 17th, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge called the murders calculated and cold, emphasizing the brutality and efforts to cover up the crime. Chandler's case serves as a grim example of how deceit can spiral into unimaginable violence and tragedy. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.